Well, thank you, Julie, and thank you, Terry, and thank you, Jean, and thank you to everyone else for coming. We have some very serious business to attend to, but let me also say, as you can see, we're very informal in the way that we conduct town hall meetings. We think town hall meetings should be democracy at its best, and they're wide open. I hope nobody asked you at the door if you were Republican, Democrat, Independent, Libertarian, right? Nobody asked you. And I want you to know I don't screen questions. You don't have to write them down. And so it's intended to be freewheeling, and that's the way I like it. I want you to know I love town hall meetings because it gives us a chance to talk about what we need to do, as I will put it, to save our country. And that's why I'm here, and I suspect that's why you're here too. So what I will do is I will speak about 15 minutes. I'll be relatively brief, and then I'm going to welcome your questions, because I want to address what you are interested in. And I always find that the audience interest goes up substantially when we get to questions and answers. So I fully anticipate that to be the highlight of the evening. And I know I'm known as a politician, but I really, my career is really that of a teacher. And as a teacher, I learned how to get students to ask questions. And teaching in my book was a dialogue. And for me, that worked well. So let me begin with a statement that President Abraham Lincoln made in his very famous Gettysburg Address. And in that Gettysburg Address, he said, and actually he began his address by saying that the Civil War had put the United States to a test. And the test was whether a nation conceived and born in liberty could long survive. I am convinced that we are being put to that test again right now. It's a different kind of test, but nonetheless, we are being put to the test once again. And I am convinced that we can pass that test, but we need to be serious about it, and I'm going to make the case that we need to make some changes. So what changes do I have in mind? Well, first and foremost, and what I believe is clearly the biggest issue is pictured on this chart that I can't see, but is in front of you. And I think the chart depicts our national debt as it has developed since 1944. And I found this chart, it began in 1944, which just happens to be the year I was born. So this is the national debt as it has grown in my lifetime. And it is my intention to turn the corner on this and have this line start pointing downward during my lifetime. And that, in a nutshell, very simply, is why I am here. Now, I don't know if from where you're sitting you can see the numbers on the chart. By the way, it's also on the back of the brochure that a lot of you picked up. And the message, balance the budget, and the chart is on just about everything we do. But anyway, if you can see the chart and you can see the numbers, it describes how our national debt is now approaching $16 trillion. This chart says 16.4. Well, that includes 2012. So that's where we will be come the first of the year. And there are a lot of very significant things about that. Plus, the direction on the chart is obviously significant. But a couple details we should be aware of. Number one, and I think most or all of you know this, the national debt is now greater than our annual gross domestic product. That occurred on August 3rd, 2011. We're approaching a year. That's significant. Second thing I want you to know, if you don't already know, 20 cents out of every dollar that the federal government now collects is spent on interest on the national debt. I see that as being extraordinarily irresponsible. And we are facing a chart here that reflects, that describes what I will call extraordinary irresponsibility. Another fact that I think is worth being aware of is that if this trend continues, in 3 years, interest on the national debt will exceed all our spending on national defense. There are a lot of reasons why that's significant, but one is that the United States of America, under our Constitution, was formed for the purpose of national defense. Okay? It was formed for the purpose of national defense. And if the interest on the debt exceeds what we're spending on national defense, obviously that should raise all kinds of red flags. Now, I'm going to show you a second chart, which is the debt adjusted for inflation. And you'll see the chart looks a little bit different, but it's fundamentally the same chart. The debt adjusted for inflation. Make sure I've got the right one up. I do. And this is in $2,000. I have to amend the chart a bit because it only goes through 2008. And if we extended it through 2012, as the previous chart was extended, we then would have to run the line, the bars, up about another foot. And we would be about 8 inches above the chart if we added 2009, 10, 11, and 12. So it's basically the same picture, adjusted for inflation, and obviously it says something is very wrong. Now, what if you were on the board of control of any organization? Could be a civic organization, could be a church, could be a political organization, could be a business. And this chart reflected the debt of your organization. How many of you would say, I think we'll just keep doing what we're doing because it's working pretty well? I never see any hands when I raise that question. I mean, obviously, the chart says we're in big trouble. And if you were part of a business and this described your debt, I'm sure you would be saying, how do we get out of this? I mean, is it Chapter 11? Can we find some buyer? Or what do we do? So obviously, we have a huge problem. Now, I want to show you a third chart before I comment much more, because this chart depicts the growth in the federal government as compared to the growth in personal income. And again, if I could update this chart just a little bit up to 2012, we would see the growth in personal income since 1970 not at a 32% growth, and this is median income, but at a 28% growth, because median income has dropped that much in the last 4 years. And the growth of government would be up off the chart once again. So what we're looking at, apart from the debt, is we're looking at a government that has grown much too rapidly given the size of the ability of people to fund it. And in fact, the federal government has grown more than 10 times faster than median income. Obviously, you can't continue that forever, okay? So at some point in the past, and I think it was about 10 years ago, we passed the point where our economy could sustain this level of government. So when I first saw this chart, it reminded me of something that I did several times when I was in my 20s. And I don't know if anyone else here ever was part of this kind of event. The county fairs used to have tractor pulls, and I always thought they were great fun. In fact, I had a tractor ride, entered a couple of times. But the way we did the tractor pulls is the tractor would pull a sled with some weight on it, and then people would line up along the side, and as the sled went by with the tractor pulling it, people would step on the sled. And of course, the more people that stepped on the sled, the heavier the sled became. Okay? And as people stepped on, you would reach a point where the tractor couldn't pull the load anymore, and the tractor would spin out, and that would be the end. Anybody else do this besides me? Anybody seen that done? Okay, Mike's seen it done, Henry's seen it done, Bill's seen it done, a lot of you have seen it done. Really, it was great fun. But that's comparable to what we see here, because the private sector has had bigger and bigger and heavier government added to it, to the point where the tractor, the engine, is spinning. Why is the economic growth anemic? Why is unemployment 8.2% and according to a lot of measures, much worse? And why are there no good signs that it's getting better? We simply have too much weight on the sled. And that weight on the sled involves regulations, it involves government spending, it involves just the overhead of government on the private sector. So I want you to know where I'm coming from, and I want to focus on solutions. Where I'm coming from is that I believe in order to have a strong, viable, job-creating economy, we have to start taking weight off the sled. We have to start reducing the drag, the overhead of the federal government. We have to shrink the size of the government substantially in order for the private sector to have the ability to create wealth, create jobs, and the like. So where I'm coming from, and I want to be future-oriented here, what are we going to do? Where I'm coming from is that I believe that when the new Congress convenes in January, item number 1 has to be to set a limit on how much this federal government can spend for 2013, 14, 15, 16, and 17 so that the budget balances in 5 years or less. And before we look at an agriculture bill or any bill, before we look at any bill, there has to be a limit. And then you prioritize. And you prioritize with debate and making the best judgments you can. But the first chart clearly says we have to change the procedures. And it's really primarily a matter of how we do the process. We have to change the process so that first you set a limit and then you prioritize. So that's what I'm convinced we have to do. And I'm in concrete on that. And if you think we should approach this differently, I'll give you a chance to make your case, but I won't give you long. Two footnotes. The first is that very soon our first TV ad is going to be up on the website. And it might be as early as tomorrow, but I can't guarantee that. And the TV ad focuses on myself a little bit, but especially on our 18-month-old granddaughter, Lucia. And I want to tell you what it is because I think it's going to tell the story. I come on the camera and I say, hi, I'm Alan Quist. This is my granddaughter, Lucia, who's in my arms. She's got red hair, cute as a pin. And then I say, I want Lucia to have the opportunity to aspire to whatever heights she chooses. On the video, Lucia is climbing stairs. She's ascending to the heights. I then say, this chart, however, pictures our national debt, $16 trillion and growing. Well, Lucia now is not on these stairs. She's now climbing this mountain of debt. At which time I say, we are passing this debt on to the next generation, which is obviously the case right now. I then pick her off the chart and I say, let's balance the budget and give a better future to our kids. And the ad closes with Lucia all by herself. And by the way, I tried it with Lucia and myself and decided just Lucia was a lot better. But, so anyway, she's sitting and she waves goodbye to everybody in the audience. So it's very simple. It tells the story in pictures. And we're going to start running that ad, we think, on Monday. And it'll tell, it's very simple, it tells the story in pictures. And let me just add to that, I have been followed politics, been involved in politics, been co-chair in Minnesota, Minnesota co-chair of 3 presidential campaigns. I have never seen an election where the issues were this important. I've never seen an election where the issues were this simple, okay? And I have never seen an election where the citizens were as involved as they are in this one.